Hey friends! Welcome to today's video. Today, I'm going to share with you guys a new concealer trick that I truly believe is going to change the game when it comes to applying your concealer. So I actually stumbled across this tip the other day. I was doing my makeup and I was just kind of playing around and mixing things together. And I thought, why have I not shared this tip? This is amazing. I think concealer is probably the one thing that I get asked the most about. It's one of those steps in the makeup application. I think most of us do because a lot of us have darkness under the eyes. That is where we have, even if you have really bright, kind of flawless skin, typically you will find that underneath the eyes is going to be a little bit darker. So I find that concealer is one of those things that most of us do. And I find a lot of us have the same complaints when it comes to concealer. We want it to look natural, but we want it to cover, right? We don't want it to crease, and we don't want it to magnify texture underneath the eyes. That means we don't want it to make our fine lines and wrinkles and smile lines more apparent. And that's the struggle, right? The struggle is getting that coverage while avoiding something that is too heavy that magnifies texture, because the thicker and more full coverage a product is, while it may cancel out coloration, it's not going to cancel out texture. In fact, it's going to magnify it. So we have to really, find products that give us that coverage that are not too heavy and don't crease, and that can be challenging. So I'm going to share with you guys kind of my combination right now when it comes to concealing that is really, really working for me. And I'm going to share a couple of tips and tricks that you might not have heard of yet that'll really make the hugest difference in your makeup application when it comes to concealer that are so simple. So let's get started. So before we get started, you can go ahead and take a look at my under eye area. There's some slight darkness there. I think that has improved honestly with diet over the last couple months. I've been going more plant-based and I really feel like my under eyes are not as dark as they used to be, but you can see that I do have this texture. Do you see those little dots underneath my eye? That is the texture that tends to show the most when I use a concealer or apply a concealer in a way that is too heavy. This is what is magnified. I also have some fine lines here as well, like most of us do just from expression and age, but this is kind of what I'm dealing with. So I'm gonna share with you guys the first step that I do. Obviously I applied eye cream this morning, but it's been a couple hours. I keep the Absolute Eye Serum by Elemis up here where I film, and I always apply a little bit of this just before I do concealer. It just kind of rehydrates under the eye so that when I'm putting makeup underneath the eye, it's easier to blend. It's not a dry area. The skin underneath our eyes is the driest on our face. It's also the thinnest on our face. So those things all together really create all the challenges that we have with, creasing and concealer looking too heavy. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this underneath my eye. I'm gonna pat it down. It's a very thin, lightweight product. It doesn't, it almost feels just a little thicker than water. I'll show you guys. It's just a very lightweight product. Do you see that? Yeah. So I'm just gonna take the rest of this and I'm gonna put it on my face. I don't wanna put too much underneath the eye, just enough. Next, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab my foundation. I'm gonna apply foundation first, and we'll just speed through this. But the reason that I'm doing this is because often I find when we apply concealer first, and you'll see me apply concealer first in a lot of videos, but I really want to focus this video being on having your concealer in your under eye area looking the best. And that truly, I believe, is apply your foundation first. And here's why. When we don't have any foundation on our skin and we look in the mirror, right, we see everything we want to conceal and hide. Now, if you are looking at, a makeupless face like that, you are more likely to apply more concealer than you need if you don't have foundation on. So I like to apply foundation first. Also, if you are someone that puts concealer on the face, you should always apply foundation first, because you should see what the foundation is going to do for you. How much coverage are you going to get from that foundation? And you might not even need concealer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Charlotte Tilbury Magic Foundation, and I am the shade 5, and we are going to apply this onto the face. I'm using the BK Beauty 106 foundation brush. And I always like to start in the center of the face, press, and blend out. I'm not going to apply a whole lot of foundation. I don't really feel like I need a lot today. And we'll go ahead and kind of speed through this. So now that I have a foundation on, the skin and the face looks improved. It does kind of make that under eye area a little more obvious of where you need concealer and where you don't. I saved a little bit of my foundation on the back of my hand here, and this is where that tip and trick is going to come into play. So before I get started on my concealer, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to spray my concealer brush that I'm going to use, which is the BK Beauty 108 brush. I'm actually going to spray it with a little bit of setting spray first. Rather than spray directly under the eyes, I'm going to spray my brush. I'm going to kind of tap it on my hand just so I don't apply too much, and I'm gently going to just tap that under the eye. So I'm not applying a whole lot of this. It's just getting a little bit, okay? Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my concealer. Today we are going to use the Milani Conceal and Perfect. So the reason that I chose the Milani Conceal and Perfect concealer is because it is a full coverage, matte, more drier consistency. So I felt like, you know, it's really easy to grab a hydrating, lightweight concealer. I wanted to show this trick with an actual full coverage drying concealer so that you could see how you can transform it and make it look more natural but still get great coverage. So I've got a little bit of that foundation left on my hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the concealer and I am going to put a little bit in the inner corner of my eye. Okay, I'm not going to put a lot. I'm just going to put a little bit right here, just like that. Now, instead of taking this concealer all the way over and applying it all the way over, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush that not only has the setting spray on it, and I'm going to take the foundation on it now, okay, and I'm going to go in and blend out that concealer and mix that foundation with it. So what that is doing is it is kind of working as a mixing medium. When I worked at MAC Cosmetics, you know, years and years and years ago, we had products at the pro store called mixing mediums, and they were really used to manipulate the formula of foundation. So if you wanted to, so it's great for a pro makeup artist who can't carry, you know, 4 different foundations in 20 different shades in their kit, and they want to find one formula that can be easily manipulated by a mixing medium. So that way you could get more coverage if you want, you could get sheer, you could really manipulate and customize what you want. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. It's the same theory. I'm taking a foundation, which is a lighter weight than the concealer, okay? And I'm using it as a mixing medium to alter and manipulate the concealer. Now you can see that I still get great coverage. If you compare the two eyes, you can still see that this is brighter and you know, everything's covered, but it has a softer look than if I were to apply just the concealer. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the other eye. Now I do recommend respraying your brush with a setting spray. Just spray it one more time. And, oh, you know what? I've used all my foundation though, so let's go and get a little bit more. You don't want to do a lot. You just want to do a little. Okay, perfect. And this is the foundation. You really want to work it into the brush like that. Work it into the brush. That way you're not applying too much of it. Now the drier of formula that you use in your concealer, the faster you have to work. This is a drier consistency. If you allow too much time, you're gonna run into the issue of the concealer drying and being harder to blend out. So I recommend, you know, working quickly, doing one eye at a time if the concealer formula is dry. And this one is not only a drier formula, but it's also an older product, so it's drying out even a little faster, but perfect. Okay, wonderful. And I always take my time, guys. When in doubt, blend it out. When in doubt, blend it out. Take your time with your skin. Don't hurry through your skin. I find that if you can perfect the skin, then the rest of your makeup, you can kind of, you know, go quicker. Perfect. Okay, wonderful. So now you can see everything is covered, bright and smooth, but it doesn't look heavy. And you guys, this concealer is one of my heavier full coverage matte concealers, but you can just see how soft and natural it looks. Perfect. Okay, the last thing that you can do, and I always recommend doing this, is setting the under eyes with a little bit of setting powder. Now, the powder that you choose is so important. You don't want to use a powder that has a lot of pigment. I recommend using a translucent powder. You don't want to use a powder that is heavy and has a super high, you know, matte, flat finish. You want to use something that's sheer, translucent, maybe has a subtle brightening to it, but essentially all it's going to do is set the makeup without altering the makeup. And one of my favorites. I have a few, but one that I is always a no-fail option is the Danessa Myricks translucent powder. And I have the shade just 01. It's basically, it looks white, but it's basically disappears as soon as you put it on. This powder is extremely lightweight and sheer, and it just smooths everything out. Now, I have about that much on my brush, but I'm actually going to kind of press it on my skin. Again, you know, less is more, especially under the eye area. And then I will softly kind of press that under the eye. Take whatever's left in the palm of my hand still, because there is still some there. And powder the nose and the pores. This powder just makes the pores disappear. It's like magic. I love it. Okay, and then we'll do a little bit on the forehead. When you are setting underneath the eyes, you want to make sure you look up. If you're just looking straight ahead, you're going to create a little crease. Look up, kind of drop the mouth, pull that skin down, but not pull it down, you know what I mean? Gently pulling it down by looking up and opening the mouth. And that way you can set where that would naturally crease. And there you have it. I'm gonna go apply my makeup and I'll be right back with my final thoughts. Okay, so before we zoom out and wrap this video up, I just wanted to show you how the under eye area looks after I've concealed and set everything with powder. As you can see, I've got great coverage under the eye. It hasn't magnified the appearance of those dots underneath my eyes or magnified texture at all. It's slightly blurred and a little bit smoother. Now, it doesn't completely make texture go away, you guys. I don't want to provide any false claims here, but when it comes to using a full coverage matte concealer, this is about as natural and smooth as it gets. Before we wrap this video up, there are a few things that you should keep in mind. Not to say you have to use the exact formulas that I did. You know, you can obviously apply this tip and trick to other concealers and other foundations, but there are a few rules that you want to keep in mind. So the first is to avoid like really hydrating CC creams or BB creams, things that have a lot of oil in them, things that are just really emollient and don't have a good staying power, because what will happen is while it may make the concealer look more natural and hydrated, it's not going to have the same long wearing ability. It's probably going to interfere with the staying power of that concealer, and then you're going to be dealing with the creasiness or the smudging of your concealer. So avoid really emollient hydrating formulas. Also avoid really full coverage or matte formulas, because again, the whole idea is to use a formula that is less full coverage, less pigmented than the concealer to create that mixing medium. On the other side of that, if you have a hydrating concealer that is very sheer and light coverage, you could mix it with a foundation that is a bit more matte and full coverage. So the key really is to take kind of products that balance each other out. You don't want to do two really glowy hydrating concealer and foundation, and you don't want to use a full coverage heavy concealer and a full coverage heavy foundation, if that makes sense. So the idea, remember, is you're using a mixing medium. You're altering and manipulating the formula. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would love to know what your concealer hacks are. Leave them in the comment section below. Let's have a conversation. Also, if you're new to my channel and you enjoyed this, you found this helpful, please consider subscribing. My passion on YouTube is teaching and education, and I think that after you watch a few of my videos, you will pick up on that quickly. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate the time that you spend here with me. Our time is precious and it's valuable, and I appreciate you. Have a good day, you guys. Bye-bye.